Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the massive council chamber, her small human frame dwarfed by the towering alien representatives around her. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to convert her words into dozens of different languages and communication methods. She clutched a data pad, containing her life's work while trying not to show how nervous she felt. The Galactic Defense Council had been meeting for over 300 years. In this same chamber, the walls were made of polished Zephyrian crystal that glowed softly blue, and the ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed near the top. Elena had dreamed of standing here since she was a child, but now that the moment had arrived, she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. "The human requests permission to speak," announced Counselor X9, a Zephyrian whose body looked like a walking diamond sculpture. His voice came out as musical chimes that the translation device converted to standard galactic speech. "No, I cannot imagine what a species barely 50 years into space travel could offer this council." Elena felt her cheeks burn red, but she forced herself to speak clearly. "Honored council members, I come before you today with a new type of warship design, one that could change how we defend our worlds against the hegemony threat." A sound like grinding metal filled the chamber. Elena realized it was laughter from Warlord Kess, a massive Brutarian whose species had been building warships since before humans discovered fire. His 4 arms crossed over his barrel chest as he spoke. "Little human, my people have been crafting battle vessels for 10,000 years. What could your kind possibly teach us?" Elena touched her datapad, and a holographic image appeared above her head. The ship design rotated slowly, showing every angle of her creation. It did not look like any vessel the Council had ever seen. Where alien ships were smooth and geometric, hers had flowing curves that seemed almost alive. Strange bumps and projections covered the hull in patterns that made no sense to traditional engineering. "This is the Prometheus design," Elena said, her voice growing stronger. "It uses gravity manipulation for movement, dark matter for weapons, and quantum phase technology for defense." The council chamber fell silent. Then Commander Helix of the Morphid Fleet spoke, his tentacles riding in the air as he communicated. The translator struggled with his complex gestures before finally producing words. "These technologies, they are impossible to combine. The power requirements alone would destroy any ship." Elena smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. That is what everyone said about human flight once. And space travel. And faster-than-light communication. Humans have a saying, impossible just means no one has figured out how to do it yet. The crystalline council member X9 chimed a harsh note. "Your species thinks too simply. There are laws of physics, young human. Mathematical certainties that cannot be broken. We have calculated every possible ship design. Yours violates basic principles of energy conservation." Elena activated another section of her hologram, showing the internal systems. "I am not breaking the laws of physics. I am using them in ways you have not tried before. Look here." She pointed to what appeared to be a chaotic mess of tubes and chambers. "This is not random. Each system feeds into the others. The gravity drive creates energy waste that powers the dark matter collectors. The quantum phase generators use the dark matter emissions to shift between dimensions. Nothing is wasted. An ethereal representative, appearing as a shifting cloud of silver gas, spoke in whispers that barely registered on the translation system. The human shows us plumbing where we see engineering. This is not ship design. This is... What is your... word ... jury rigging?" Elena's eyes flashed with anger, but she kept her voice calm. "My grandfather was a mechanic who could make any machine work with spare parts and creativity. My grandmother was a scientist who asked questions others were afraid to ask. I learned from both of them that the best solutions often come from mixing what you know with what you dare to try." Warlord Kess leaned forward, his massive frame creaking. Even if your strange ideas could work, which they cannot, where would you build such a vessel? No shipyard in the galaxy would risk their reputation on human madness. Elena had expected this question. I do not need much. A small asteroid facility, basic construction equipment, a team of engineers willing to try something new. She paused, looking around the chamber. I know my design looks impossible to you, but humans are very good at making impossible things work. The council members began talking among themselves in their various languages. Elena caught fragments through the translation system. Words like waste of resources and human arrogance, an amusing experiment, drifted through the air. Finally, Vex-9 called for order. The council has discussed your proposal, Dr. Vasquez. While we find your confidence, entertaining, we cannot justify major resources for such an unlikely project. Elena's heart sank, but the Zephyrian continued. However, we are not without mercy. You may have asteroid facility 7 Alpha in the outer belt. It has been abandoned for 50 years, but the basic equipment still functions. You may also requisition standard construction materials and a small team of volunteer engineers. Elena felt a mix of hope and insult. They were giving her the worst possible conditions and expecting her to fail. But it was a chance, and humans had built amazing things from less. Thank you, honored council. How long do I have? 1 standard galactic year, said Commander Helix. If you can produce anything worth our attention by then, we will consider expanded support. If not, His tentacles made a gesture the translator could not interpret, but Elena understood it meant dismissal. As Elena gathered her datapad and prepared to leave, Warlord Kess called out, Human, what makes you think you can succeed where our greatest minds have failed? Elena turned back to face the massive alien warrior. Because you have been thinking about this problem the same way for thousands of years. Sometimes the best solution comes from someone who does not know it is supposed to be impossible. She smiled again. Besides, humans love to prove people wrong. The council chamber erupted in various sounds of alien amusement as Elena walked toward the exit. She heard Vex-9 say to another council member, At least it will be educational to watch them fail. Elena kept walking, but inside she was already planning. She thought about the abandoned asteroid facility waiting for her, about the engineers crazy enough to join her project, and about the ship design that lived in her mind like a beautiful dream. The aliens thought they were sending her to fail in exile, but Elena knew they had just given her exactly what she needed. Freedom to build without interference. As the massive doors of the council chamber closed behind her, Elena whispered to herself, 1 year to build the impossible. Good thing impossible is my specialty. The first part of her journey was complete. Now the real work would begin. 3 months after the council meeting, Elena stood on the observation deck of Asteroid Facility 7 Alpha, watching her team work on what would become the most unusual warship in galactic history. The abandoned facility floated in the cold darkness, between 2 dead planets, far from any major shipping lanes or military installations. It was exactly where the council wanted her, out of sight and out of mind. The facility itself was old and worn down. Half the lights did not work. The artificial gravity flickered every few hours, and the air recycling system made strange noises that Elena had learned to ignore. But the construction bays were solid, and the basic equipment still functioned. More importantly, no one was watching them closely enough to interfere with her work. Elena's team was as unusual as her ship design. She had expected to work mostly alone, but word of the crazy human project had spread through certain circles. Engineers who had been rejected for being too creative, scientists who asked too many uncomfortable questions, and mechanics who refused to follow standard procedures had found their way to the asteroid. Marcus Webb was her second in command, a human engineer who had been kicked out of 3 different shipyards for dangerous innovations. He stood beside Elena now, wearing a patched work suit and grinning at the chaos below them. "You know, Elena, when you said we were building something different, I thought you meant a few modifications to existing designs. This is completely insane." Elena laughed. "The best kind of insane." She pointed to the construction bay, where the ship's skeleton was taking shape. "Look at that curve in the main hull. No alien engineer would design it that way, because it does not follow their mathematical models. But humans understand sometimes the best path is not a straight line." In the bay below them, a Zephyrian named Crick 7 was installing crystal matrices into what looked like a metal nervous system. Crix had been exiled from his homeworld for suggesting that their sacred crystal technology could be improved. Now he worked with human salvage metal and morphid biocomponents to create something entirely new. "The crystals are learning," Crix chimed excitedly through his translator. "They adapt to the ship's needs instead of following fixed programming." The human concept of intuition is fascinating when applied to crystalline intelligence. Near the ship's emerging engine section, a morphid engineer named Flexis writhed her tentacles around complicated machinery. Her species had cast her out for being too willing to change traditional bioship designs. She had traveled halfway across the galaxy to join Alana's project after hearing about it through underground engineering networks. "The biometal is responding beautifully," Flexis reported, her translator struggling with her rapid tentacle movements. "It bonds with both crystal and standard metal in ways we never imagined. The hull will be able to repair itself and adapt to different types of damage." Elena climbed down to the main construction floor, stepping carefully around cables and half-assembled components. The ship looked nothing like the clean, orderly vessels she had studied in engineering school. Instead, it resembled something that had grown rather than been built. Organic curves mixed with geometric precision, and systems that should have been separate were woven together in complex patterns. "Dr. Vasquez," called out Tommy Chun, a young human mechanic who specialized in making incompatible technologies work together. "The gravity drive housing is ready for the first test. But I have to warn you, it looks nothing like the blueprint." Elena walked over to examine Tommy's work. The gravity manipulation system was supposed to be a series of precisely aligned rings. But Tommy had created something that looked more like a metal flower with petals that moved independently. "Why did you change the design?" Elena asked, not angry but curious. Tommy wiped grease from his hands with a dirty rag. The original design would have worked, but it was fighting against itself. All those precise alignments created stress points that would have failed eventually. So I let the components find their own natural positions and then built supports around them. It is stronger and uses 30% less power. Elena stared at the modified gravity drive, her mind racing. This was exactly what she had hoped would happen. Human intuition combined with alien technology, creating something better than either could achieve alone. "Tommy, you are a genius. How did you know to do that?" Tommy shrugged. "My dad always said machines want to work efficiently. You just have to listen to what they are trying to tell you." Over the next few weeks, similar innovations happened throughout the ship. The weapons systems, designed by a disgraced ethereal named WISP-9, used human-style energy-focusing techniques to create dark matter beams that were both more powerful and more precise than anything in the standard galactic arsenal. The defensive systems, built by a team of mixed-species outcasts, combined energy shields with physical armor that could shift between dimensions. Elena's favorite modification came from an unexpected source. Old Pete, a human janitor who had somehow ended up on the asteroid, suggested using empty spaces in the ship's design as resonance chambers. "Ships should sing," he told Elena one day while mopping the floor near the main hull assembly. My grandfather built boats, and he always said a good boat has its own music when the wind hits it right. Elena had initially dismissed the idea, but Crick 7 became fascinated with the concept. Working together, they designed chambers that would resonate with specific frequencies, creating a kind of early warning system. If the ship encountered certain types of energy fields or hostile scans, the resonance would change, alerting the crew to danger. The most challenging part of construction was integrating all the different technologies without causing system conflicts. Alien engineering typically kept different systems completely separate to avoid interference. Elena's design required everything to work together, sharing power and information in real time. "It should not be possible," muttered Dr. YSSL, a snake-like Syrian engineer who had joined the team after being labeled too experimental by her own people. Zephyrian crystals should not be able to interface with morphid biosystems. The energy frequencies are completely incompatible. Elena watched as YSSL connected a crystal matrix to a biometal junction, using a piece of human-designed interface technology that Tommy had cobbled together from spare parts. When the connection activated, both systems began working more efficiently than they ever had separately. "Maybe they are not supposed to work together," Elena said thoughtfully. "But maybe supposed to is not as important as can actually. Humans have been making incompatible things work together for centuries. We call it innovation." By the 6th month of construction, the ship had taken on a life of its own. The biometal hull rippled slightly when touched. The crystal matrices hummed with what sounded almost like contentment, and the gravity drive created small distortions in space-time, even while powered down. The ship was becoming something that had never existed before, a fusion of technologies and philosophies from across the galaxy, held together by human stubbornness and creativity. Elena stood in what would become the ship's bridge, looking out through the transparent aluminum viewports at the stars beyond. The command systems around her were a mixture of holographic displays, bioneural interfaces, and simple mechanical controls. It looked chaotic to alien eyes, but Elena could see the elegant logic underneath. "She is almost ready," Marcus said, joining Elena on the bridge. "Another month, and we can begin system tests." Elena nodded, but her attention was focused on a small screen showing news feeds from the galactic networks. Reports of hegemony raids were increasing, and the standard Defense Council fleets were struggling to respond effectively. Her ship might be ready just in time to prove itself in actual combat. "Marcus," Elena said quietly, "I think we are about to find out if impossible really is just another word for untried." The Prometheus Rising moved through space like a living creature, its biometal hull shifting color from deep black to silver as it caught starlight. Elena sat in the captain's chair, her hands resting lightly on controls that felt warm to the touch. Around her, the bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as systems that should never have worked together operated in perfect harmony. "All systems are running smoothly," reported Marcus from the navigation station. His voice carried a note of amazement that had been there since their first test flight 3 days ago. "Gravity drive is responding beautifully. We are maintaining faster than light speed with less energy consumption than a standard career ship." Elena smiled, watching the stars streak past on the main view screen. The ship's movement felt different from any vessel she had ever been on. Instead of the harsh acceleration and sudden stops of conventional drives, the Prometheus Rising seemed to flow through space, riding gravitational currents like a sailboat on cosmic winds. "Crix, how are the navigation crystals performing?" Elena asked the Zephyrian engineer who had become her chief systems monitor. "They are singing," Crix chimed, his crystalline body pulsing with satisfied light. "The crystals have learned the ship's movement patterns and are predicting course corrections before we request them. I have never seen anything like it." From The weapons station, WISP-9 spoke in the breathy tones of his ethereal species. The dark matter collectors are functioning perfectly. We have enough stored energy for 6 full power shots, and the collection rate exceeds all projections. Elena had insisted on a small crew for the test flight, just 12 beings from 6 different species. Everyone aboard had helped build the ship and understood its unusual systems. They were running patrol missions in the outer rim, far from major trade routes, to test all the ship's capabilities before reporting back to the Defense Council. Contact on long-range sensors, announced Flexes from the communication station, her tentacles dancing over bio-neural interfaces. Multiple ships moving fast toward the Kepler mining colony. Elena leaned forward, studying the tactical display. 7 ships in formation, their energy signatures matching known hegemony raider designs. The mining colony had minimal defenses and over 10,000 civilian workers. How long until they reached the colony? At their current speed, 23 minutes, Marcus replied. The nearest Defense Council patrol is 6 hours away. Elena felt her pulse quicken. This was exactly the kind of situation she had designed the Prometheus Rising to handle, but they had not planned to face combat so soon. What does the colony have for defense? 2 orbital defense platforms with light energy cannons, Flexes, reported after checking colonial databases. Against 7 hegemony raiders, they will not last 5 minutes. Elena made her decision. Plot an intercept course. Best possible speed. Elena, Marcus said quietly, are you sure about this? We have not tested the weapon systems in actual combat. We do not know how the ship will handle battle conditions. Elena looked around the bridge at her mixed crew. Each face showed concern, but also determination. They had all sacrificed careers and reputations to build something unprecedented. Now was the time to find out if their sacrifices had been worth it. The ship was designed for this, Elena said firmly. And those people need help now. She activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We are moving to engage hostile forces threatening a civilian colony. This is our first real test. Everyone knows their job. Let us show the galaxy what human engineering can do. The Prometheus Rising accelerated like nothing in the galactic fleet. The gravity drive did not push the ship forward, but instead made space itself bend around them, creating a pocket of altered physics that allowed impossible maneuvers. In less than 10 minutes, they had covered a distance that should have taken an hour. Dropping out of faster-than-light speed, Marcus announced. Colony ahead, raiders moving into attack formation. Elena studied the tactical display. The hegemony. Ships were massive, each one twice the size of the Prometheus Rising. Their hulls bristled with heavy weapons and thick armor plating. Standard Galactic Defense Council doctrine would call for waiting for reinforcements against such odds. Incoming. Transmission from the lead raider, Flexes reported. On screen, Elena ordered. The view screen showed a hegemony commander, his scarred face twisted with arrogance. Behind him, Elena could see the bridge of a warship designed purely for destruction. Unknown vessel, you are interfering with a legitimate hegemony operation. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. Elena stood up, making sure her human face was clearly visible. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Prometheus Rising. You are threatening civilians under Galactic Defense Council protection. You have 30 seconds to withdraw or face the consequences. The hegemony commander laughed, a harsh sound that made the bridge speakers crackle. One small ship against my battle group? Your species truly is as foolish as we have heard. The transmission ended. They are powering weapons, WISP-9 reported from the weapons station. All 7 ships are targeting us. Elena settled back into her chair. Tommy, activate the quantum phase armor. Crix, prepare evasive maneuvers using the yaw. Gravity drive. Wisp, charge the dark matter cannons. Phase armor activated. Tommy called out from engineering. Hull is shifting into quantum phase. We are partially existing in normal spacetime. Gravity drive ready for combat maneuvers. Crix chimed. Artificial gravity field is stable. Dark matter cannons are charged and ready, Wisp 9 whispered, targeting the lead ship. The first hegemony volley came like a wall of destructive energy. Plasma beams and particle cannons that could have vaporized a standard warship struck the Prometheus Rising and passed harmlessly through empty space. The quantum phase armor had shifted the ship slightly out of normal reality, making it nearly impossible to hit with conventional weapons. Direct hit, shouted the confused voice of a hegemony gunner over an open channel. Wait, no damage readings. What is happening? Elena smiled grimly. Return fire. Target their weapon systems. The dark matter cannons fired with a sound like reality tearing. Purple-black beams lanced across space, striking the lead hegemony ship's weapons arrays. The dark matter interacted with the ship's energy shields in ways that no one had predicted, causing cascading failures that knocked out half the Raiders' offensive capability. Impossible, came another hegemony transmission. Our shields are rated against all known energy types. They are not familiar with dark matter weapons, Wisp 9 observed with satisfaction. Their shields cannot adapt to what they do not understand. The hegemony raiders tried to surround the Prometheus Rising, but the gravity drive allowed maneuvers that defied everything they knew about space combat. Elena's ship could change direction instantly, accelerate in multiple directions at once, and even briefly travel faster than light within the battle zone itself. This is insane, Marcus laughed as he watched the tactical display. We are dancing around them like they are standing still. 2 more hegemony ships took direct hits from the dark matter cannons, their heavy armor designed to withstand standard galactic weapons simply melted away under the exotic energy beams. One raider lost its main engines and began spinning helplessly. Another had its command bridge completely destroyed. Unknown ship, what are you? Came a desperate transmission from the remaining functional raiders. Elena opened a channel. We are what happens when humans decide to build something new. The remaining hegemony ships tried one final coordinated attack, pouring everything they had at the Prometheus Rising. But the combination of quantum phase armor and gravity drive maneuvers made hitting the ship nearly impossible. Meanwhile, the dark matter cannons continued their devastating work, systematically disabling each raider. Within 20 minutes of combat beginning, all 7 hegemony ships were either destroyed or crippled beyond repair. Not one shot had successfully damaged the Prometheus Rising. Colony Command is transmitting thanks, Flexes reported. They are asking who we are and how we got here so quickly. Elena sank back into her chair, adrenaline still coursing through her system. Around the bridge, her crew was celebrating quietly, amazed at what their impossible ship had just accomplished. Send our identity to the colony and request that they forward a full battle report to the Galactic Defense Council, Elena ordered. Include sensor readings of our ship's performance and the effectiveness of our weapon systems. Elena, Marcus said softly, do you realize what just happened? 7 hegemony raiders. We took them all out without a scratch. Elena looked at the tactical display showing the disabled enemy ships and the grateful transmissions from the colony. I realized that we just proved human engineering works, and I have a feeling the galaxy is about to take notice. The Galactic Defense Council chamber was louder than Elena had ever heard it. Representatives from dozens of species argued in overlapping voices, while holographic displays showed the same battle footage over and over again. The Prometheus Rising, destroying 7 hegemony raiders without taking a single hit. The impossible maneuvers that defied every law of space combat. the weapons that cut through shields like they were made of paper. Elena stood at the center of it all, watching Alien. Military leaders tried to understand what they had witnessed. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at Kepler Colony, and the news had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every major power wanted to know how a single human-built ship had accomplished what entire fleets could not. The sensor readings must be wrong, declared Admiral Vex of the Therian Navy, his metallic voice ringing through the chamber. No ship can change direction that quickly without tearing itself apart. The crew would be crushed by acceleration forces. The weapons. Signatures make no sense, added Fleet Commander Zhao, a 6-armed hexapod whose species had perfected energy weapons over millennia. Dark matter cannot be weaponized. It is theoretically impossible to maintain cohesion in a directed beam. Elena had heard these arguments for hours now. Every alien expert insisted that what her ship had done was impossible, even while looking at proof that it had happened. She waited for a break in the shouting before speaking. Honored council members, you keep saying my ship cannot do what you have seen it do. Perhaps the problem is not with my ship, but with your understanding of what is possible. The chamber fell silent. Counselor Vex 9 chimed a sharp note of irritation. Dr. Vasquez, your vessel appears to violate fundamental principles of physics. We require a complete technical inspection to understand how you achieved these results. Elena had expected this demand. I am willing to allow limited inspection, but only by engineers who are prepared to think beyond traditional methods. Most of your experts would look at my systems and see only chaos because they do not understand human engineering philosophy. Warlord Kess leaned forward, his massive frame creaking. Philosophy? This is military technology, not art class. We need practical answers. How does your gravity drive work? How do you maintain hull integrity during those impossible maneuvers? Elena activated her datapad, projecting a simplified schematic of the gravity drive. The drive does not fight against gravitational forces. It works with them, finding the natural currents and flows that exist throughout space. Instead of pushing against physics, we let physics carry us where we want to go. Dr. Rath, the chief engineer of the Morphid fleet, writhed his tentacles in confusion. But the calculations required for such navigation would overwhelm any computer system. The variables are too complex for real-time processing. Elena smiled. That is why we do not rely entirely on computers. Human intuition plays a role in navigation. Our pilot feels the gravitational currents and responds instinctively. You cannot program instinct into a machine. The statement caused an uproar among the alien representatives. For most species, the idea of trusting something as unreliable as intuition in critical systems was unthinkable. Their engineering was based on precise calculations and proven formulas, not feelings and guesswork. This is madness, chimed Vex 9. You are saying your ship's effectiveness depends on unmeasurable human emotions? Elena shook her head. Not emotions. Experience and pattern recognition that comes from years of practice. My pilot Marcus has been working with gravitational systems since he was a teenager. He understands how gravity behaves in ways that no textbook can teach. Commander Helix of the Morphid fleet spoke through rapid tentacle movements. Even if we accept your ... unusual navigation methods, your weapon systems present an entirely different problem. Dark matter weapons have been attempted for centuries without success. How did you solve the containment problem? Elena displayed another schematic, this one showing the dark matter collection and focusing systems. We did not solve the containment problem. We eliminated it. Instead of trying to store dark matter, we collect and fire it in a continuous process. The dark matter never stays in our systems long enough to become unstable. Wisp 9, the ethereal? Weapons specialist drifted closer to examine the display. But the power requirements for continuous collection must be enormous. No ship can generate that much energy. Elena pointed to another section of the schematic. We do not generate the power. We borrow it. The gravity drive creates distortions in space-time that we use to power the dark matter collectors. The quantum phase armor uses the energy released when we shift between dimensions. Every system feeds into every other system. The council chamber erupted again as alien engineers tried to process this information. Their understanding of ship design was based on separate, independent systems that could be maintained and repaired individually. Elena's approach created a ship that was more like a living organism, where every part depended on every other part. Such integration would make your ship extremely vulnerable, observed Fleet Engineer Koss, a methodical robotic intelligence. If one system fails, all systems fail. This is poor design philosophy. Elena had faced this criticism before. In traditional engineering, yes, but my ship learns and adapts. When one system becomes stressed, others compensate automatically. The biometal hull can reroute power. The crystals can adjust their processing priorities, and the quantum systems can shift energy loads between dimensions. Dr. Issel, Elena's former colleague who had helped build the ship, slithered forward to address the council. I worked on this vessel for 6 months, and I can confirm that Dr. Vasquez speaks the truth. The ship exhibits behavior that cannot be explained by standard engineering principles. It is as if the vessel has developed a form of technological consciousness. This statement caused the greatest uproar yet. The idea of a truly conscious starship challenged fundamental beliefs about the relationship between creator and creation. Most species viewed their technology as sophisticated tools, not potential partners. Admiral Vex's voice cut through the noise. Conscious or not, we need to understand this technology. The hegemony is preparing their largest offensive in galactic history. Intelligence reports suggest they are massing over 300 warships for a coordinated strike. We need every advantage we can get. Elena felt a chill at this news. 300 ships represented the largest military force ever assembled by the hegemony. Even with the Prometheus Rising's capabilities, one ship could not stand against such numbers. How long before they attack? Elena asked. Commander Helix consulted his tactical displays. Intelligence estimates 6 months at most. They are moving forces from across their territory and building new vessels specifically for this campaign. Our current fleets will not be sufficient to stop them. Elena looked around the chamber at the worried faces of alien military leaders. These beings had commanded fleets for centuries, but they had never faced a threat like this. Standard tactics and conventional weapons would not be enough. Council members, Elena said slowly, I believe there is a solution, but it will require you to trust human methods completely. Counselor Vex-9 chimed uncertainly. What are you proposing? Elena took a deep breath before making her offer. Give me a small fleet of your best ships and your most creative engineers. I will show you how to modify them using human integration techniques. We cannot build enough ships like the Prometheus Rising in 6 months, but we can create hybrid vessels that combine human innovation with your existing technology. The chamber fell silent as the council members considered this proposal. They would have to trust a human engineer to modify their most advanced warships using techniques they did not understand. For species that valued tradition and proven methods, it was asking them to abandon everything they believed about proper engineering. Warlord Kess spoke first. How many ships would you need? Elena had been thinking about this since the battle at Kepler Colony. 20 vessels, mix of different classes and technologies, and complete freedom to modify them as I see fit. The risk is enormous, Admiral Vex observed. If your modifications fail, we lose 20 of our best ships. Elena met his gaze steadily. If we do nothing, You will lose everything. The hegemony is not coming to negotiate. They are coming to conquer. Standard fleets with standard tactics will not stop them. The council members began conferring among themselves in their various languages. Elena caught fragments of urgent discussions about resource allocation, political risks, and military necessity. Finally, Councillor Vex-9 called for order. The council has reached a decision, the Zephyrian announced. You will be given 20 ships and the engineering teams you require. But Dr. Vasquez, you must understand the weight of responsibility. You are accepting. The fate of the galaxy may depend on your success. Elena nodded solemnly. I understand. Human engineering has never failed when the stakes were highest. We will not start now. The hybrid fleet hung in space like a collection of mechanical dreams brought to life. 20 ships that had once been standard galactic warships now bore the unmistakable marks of human engineering. Organic curves flowed alongside geometric precision. Biometal patches gleamed next to crystalline arrays, and energy signatures fluctuated in patterns that no alien computer could predict. Elena stood on the bridge of the Prometheus Rising, watching her modified fleet through the view screen. 4 months of intensive work had transformed Admiral Vex's heavy cruiser into something that could phase between dimensions. Commander Helix's bioship could now manipulate gravity fields with human-designed intuitive controls. Even Warlord, Kess's massive dreadnought, had been fitted with dark matter collectors that drew power from the ship's own weapons fire. Fleet status report. Elena called to her communications officer. Flexus's tentacles danced over her bioneural interfaces as she collected data from all 20 ships. All vessels report ready status. The hybrid crews are adapting well to human-style integration systems. Captain Ivor says his Zephyrian cruiser feels like it is thinking alongside him instead of just following orders. Elena smiled at that description. It perfectly captured what she had been trying to achieve. Human engineering was not about controlling technology, but partnering with it, creating ships that worked with their crews instead of just serving them. Long-range sensors are detecting the hegemony fleet, announced Marcus from the navigation station. 312 ships, moving in perfect formation toward the galactic core. They will reach the primary defense line in 6 hours. Elena studied the tactical display showing the massive enemy formation. The hegemony had brought everything they had: super dreadnoughts that could destroy planets, carrier ships filled with fighter squadrons, and specialized siege vessels designed to crack orbital defense platforms. It was the largest military force in recorded galactic history. How many ships does the main Defense Council fleet have? Elena asked. 147 vessels, Marcus replied grimly. Standard configurations with conventional weapons and defensive systems. Against those numbers, even with good tactics, they cannot win. Elena had known this moment would come since the day she first presented her ship design to the Council. The galaxy's traditional methods of warfare were about to be tested against an enemy that had spent centuries perfecting conventional combat. Without something completely new, the result would be catastrophic. Send a message to Admiral Vex on the modified cruiser Phoenix Dawn, Elena ordered. Tell him it is time to show the galaxy what happens when humans redesign impossible things. The hybrid fleet moved toward the battle zone, using a combination of conventional faster than light travel and the gravity surfing techniques Elena had pioneered. Ships that should have taken hours to reach the combat area arrived in minutes, their human-modified drives bending space-time in ways that confused every sensor array in the sector. We are approaching the defense line, Marcus reported. The main fleet is already engaged with hegemony forces. Elena watched the tactical display fill with the chaos of a massive space battle. Standard Defense Council ships fired their energy weapons in precise volleys while maintaining rigid formations. The hegemony responded with overwhelming firepower. using their numerical advantage to surround and destroy individual vessels. It was exactly the kind of conventional engagement that the enemy had prepared for. "All ships, this is Elena Vasquez," she broadcast to her hybrid fleet. "Remember your training. Do not fight like traditional fleets. Use your intuition, trust your modified systems, and show them something they have never seen before." The hybrid fleet entered the battle zone like a pack of electronic predators. Instead of forming rigid battle lines, each ship moved independently, using gravity drives to dance around enemy fire, while quantum phase systems made them nearly impossible to target accurately. The dark matter weapons punched through hegemony. Shields as if they were made of tissue paper. "Enemy flagship is firing on the Phoenix Dawn," Flexes reported, watching as massive plasma beams lanced toward Admiral Vex's modified cruiser. Elena held her breath as the attack struck. The Phoenix Dawn's hull shimmered, and the energy beams passed harmlessly through empty space. Admiral Vex had learned to use the quantum phase armor instinctively, shifting his ship between dimensions at exactly the right moment. Direct hit on. "Hegemony Dreadnought Destroyer of Worlds," came an excited transmission from Captain Ivor's crystalline cruiser. "Their main weapons array is completely offline." Elena smiled as she watched the battle unfold. Her hybrid ships were not just surviving. Against impossible odds, they were winning. Each vessel fought with a combination of alien technology and human innovation. They created capabilities no enemy could predict or counter. "The main Defense Council fleet is requesting assistance," Marcus reported. "They have lost 37 ships and are being overwhelmed on the left flank." Elena made her decision quickly. "All hybrid ships converge on Sector 7. We are going to punch a hole through their formation and give the main fleet room to maneuver." What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. 20 hybrid ships moved in perfect coordination without any central command structure. Each captain used their human-modified intuition systems to anticipate what their allies needed, creating a fluid battle formation that adapted instantly to changing conditions. The Prometheus Rising led the charge, its dark matter cannons carving through the hegemony line like a sword cutting through silk. Behind it, the other hybrid ships exploited the gap, their biometal hulls regenerating damage as quickly as it was inflicted, while their gravity drives allowed maneuvers that seemed to violate the laws of physics. "Enemy command ship is hailing us," Flexes announced. On screen, Elena ordered. The view screen showed a hegemony war leader, his scarred face twisted with confusion and rage. Behind him, Elena could see smoke and sparks from damaged systems. "What manner of ships are these? What technology do you possess?" Elena stood up, making sure her human face was clearly visible to the enemy commander. "These are ships built with human engineering principles. We do not follow your rules because we make our own rules." The hegemony leader's eyes widened with what might have been fear. Impossible. No single species could create such vessels. Elena smiled with quiet confidence. "You are right. No single species could build these ships. But humans have a gift for making different species work together, combining technologies in ways that create something greater than the sum of its parts." The battle continued for another hour, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The hybrid fleet's impossible capabilities had broken the hegemony's numerical advantage. Ships that could phase between dimensions, weapons that ignored conventional defenses, and navigation systems that treated space-time like a highway instead of an obstacle had turned the tide completely. "Enemy forces are retreating," Marcus announced. "Remaining hegemony ships are jumping to faster than light speed." Elena looked at the tactical display, showing the scattered remains of what had been the largest invasion fleet in galactic history. Over 200 enemy ships had been destroyed or disabled, while the hybrid fleet had lost only 3 vessels. "All ships stand down from combat alert. Elena broadcast to her fleet. "Outstanding work, everyone. You have just saved the galaxy." Over the next few hours, as rescue operations began and damage reports came in, Elena received congratulations from across the galaxy. The impossible had happened again. Human engineering had not just survived its greatest test, it had passed with incredible success. Admiral Vex contacted Elena directly from his modified cruiser. "Dr. Vasquez, I owe you an apology. When you first presented your designs to the Council, I thought you were a dreamer with dangerous ideas. Now I understand that you were showing us the future." Elena looked out at her hybrid fleet, ships that combined the best technologies from dozens of species with human innovation and intuition. "Admiral, this is just the beginning. Every species in the galaxy has something unique to offer. Humans just happen to be good at figuring out how to make different things work together." As the news of the victory spread across the galaxy, Elena received requests from hundreds of worlds wanting to learn human engineering techniques. The age of rigid, traditional spacecraft design was ending. In its place came an era of cooperation, an innovation that would transform how the galaxy approached every technological challenge. Elena smiled as she thought about the journey from that first dismissed presentation to this moment of triumph. Humans had proven that impossible was indeed just another word for untried. The galaxy would never be the same.
The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Imperial Corps buzzed with low conversations. Thousands of representatives from conquered worlds sat in rising tiers of seats that circled the central speaking platform. The chamber glittered with technology, beyond human understanding. Hovering light orbs, thought translators, and gravity manipulators that allowed species from heavy worlds to move comfortably among their lighter peers. Supreme Commander Alan Wright sat at the highest tier, his gray uniform decorated with medals that represented 100 successful conquests. His weathered face showed no emotion as he watched the Zilarian ambassador approach the speaking platform. Alan had seen many alien species in his 60 years of service to the Empire, but the Zilarians always made him uncomfortable. Their semi-transparent skin revealed pulsing organs, and their 4 tentacle arms moved too quickly for human eyes to track properly. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Zexel of the Zilarian Collective," announced the automated voice system. The chamber quieted as the ambassador's tentacles connected with the platform's interface. Immediately, the vast dome above the chamber transformed into a star map, zooming in on a spiral galaxy, then to a particular arm, then to a yellow star, and finally to a blue-green planet. "Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Empire," Zexel began, his voice translated into the standard Imperial language. "I come before you with urgent information regarding your planned expansion into Sector 739, specifically concerning the 3rd planet of the system humans call Sol." Alan leaned forward slightly. The Empire had indeed been planning to bring that system under Imperial control soon. Initial scans had shown a developing civilization with relatively primitive technology, exactly the kind of world the Empire typically absorbed with minimal resistance. "Our scientists have been observing this planet, which the natives call Earth, for over 300 years, continued Zexel. "We must advise against any attempt to conquer or make contact with this world." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Zilarians were known throughout the galaxy as a cautious species, but they rarely interfered with Imperial expansion. "Ambassador," came the cool voice of Counselor Olivia Stone, her blonde hair pulled back severely. "The Empire appreciates your concern, but our reports indicate the humans have barely managed space travel within their own system. They have no unified planetary government. They still fight among themselves over resources. What possible threat could they pose to the Imperial fleet?" Zexel's skin pulsed with faster colors, indicating distress in his species. "It is not what they appear. To be that concerns us. Please observe." The dome projection changed to show energy readings around the planet. Strange patterns pulsed and flowed, unlike anything Alan had seen in his long career. "These energy signatures do not match any known technology," Zexel explained. They appear to be natural to the planet, yet they respond to external stimuli in ways that suggest intelligence. Our probes that approach too closely simply disappear. Alan exchanged glances with General Greg Patterson, who rolled his eyes slightly. The Zolarians were known for their scientific expertise, but also for seeing patterns where none existed. Earth is a trap, Zexal said firmly, his translated voice echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. The humans appear to be developing naturally, but our data suggests they are either being protected by something we cannot identify, or they themselves are not what they appear to be. Counselor Richard Davis, representing the Imperial Science Division, stood up. Ambassador, with all due respect, your data shows standard gravitational and electromagnetic patterns common to life-bearing worlds. These disappearing probes, did you recover any debris? Any transmissions indicating what happened to them? No, admitted Zexal. They simply ceased all communications. Equipment failure, Richard suggested with a dismissive wave. Or perhaps your probes weren't as stealthy as you believed, and these humans destroyed them. Either way, hardly evidence of some mysterious trap. Alan watched as several council members nodded in agreement. The Empire had conquered over 3,000 worlds in its 15,000-year history. Many species had claimed special protections, divine interventions, or mysterious powers before they were brought under Imperial rule. None of those claims had proven true. Ambassador, Alan finally spoke, his deep voice carrying authority earned through decades of successful military campaigns. What exactly do you believe would happen if the Empire were to approach Earth? Zexal's tentacles moved in a pattern that the translator couldn't quite capture, something between frustration and fear. We believe your ships would fail. Your technology would stop working. Your people would be changed. The planet appears to have some kind of defense mechanism that we cannot understand. It is unprecedented. Counselor Olivia Stone laughed, the sound echoing harshly in the chamber. Changed? Into what? Are these mystical defenses supposed to turn our soldiers into humans? Into trees? Perhaps into poetry reciting space dust? More. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Even Alan smiled slightly. The Zolarians were respected, but their tendency toward excessive caution often bordered on superstition. Your mockery is noted, Counselor, Zexal said, his colors darkening. We simply present our findings as a courtesy to the Empire. We have tracked 12 sentient species that discovered Earth before you. 4 attempted contact. None of them exist anymore. This silenced the laughter briefly, but Richard Davis quickly countered. Ambassador, our historical records show no evidence of these supposed extinct species. They wouldn't, Zexal replied simply. Their existence was erased so completely that only the Zolarian deep archives retain any record of them. Alan had heard enough. While he respected the Zolarians as reliable Imperial citizens since their incorporation 50 years ago, their warnings seemed based on nothing more than unusual energy readings and lost probes, hardly reason to abandon expansion plans. Ambassador Zexal, Alan said formally, the Empire thanks you for your concern and the information you have provided. It will be added to our assessment reports on the Sol system. The Council will take your warnings under advisement. It was the diplomatic way of saying they were dismissing the warning. Zexal seemed to understand this. His tentacles disconnected from the interface and the planetary display vanished. We have fulfilled our obligation to warn you, the ambassador said quietly. What comes next is beyond our ability to help. As Zexal left the chamber, Alan turned to his aide, Susan Miller. Schedule a meeting with the 1st Contact Division for tomorrow. I want our initial scouting vessels dispatched to this Earth within the month. Yes, Commander, Susan replied, making notes on her datapad. Alan looked around at the council chamber, now buzzing with discussions about more important matters than some backwater planet with strange energy readings. The Empire had faced supposed supernatural defenses, ancient curses, and protective deities on 100 worlds. All had fallen. Earth would be no different. The Zolarian warning would be recorded and filed in the depths of Imperial archives, one more baseless fear overcome by Imperial might. By this time next year, Earth would be just another dot on the vast map of Imperial territory, its resources harvested, its population serving the greater glory of the Empire. Alan had no way of knowing that this routine dismissal would become the Empire's greatest mistake. Captain Lisa Murray stood on the command deck of the Imperial Vanguard ship Indomitable, watching as the blue planet grew larger on the main view screen. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her uniform was perfectly pressed. 20 years of service in the Imperial fleet had taught her that appearances mattered, especially when making first contact with a new species. "Status report," she said, her voice calm and measured. "All systems functioning at optimal levels, Captain," replied Daniel Green, her communications officer. He was young for his position, but Lisa had requested him specifically for this mission because of his skill with translating new languages. "The 4 support vessels are in formation and awaiting your command." Lisa nodded. The mission was straightforward. Establish orbital dominance, disable any primitive military capabilities the humans might have, and demonstrate overwhelming force. In her experience, most species surrendered quickly when they realized resistance was pointless. The Empire's technology was simply too advanced. "Begin standard approach protocol," Lisa ordered. "Activate stealth fields and prepare the electromagnetic pulse systems. I want their communications and defense networks disabled before they even know we're here." "Yes, Captain," responded her second-in-command, Officer Ryan Blake. The 5 Imperial ships moved silently toward Earth, their advanced cloaking technology making them invisible to the primitive radar systems the humans used. Lisa had studied the reports on Earth carefully. The humans had nuclear weapons, dangerous but easily neutralized, and their space technology was limited to a small station in orbit and a few probes sent to nearby planets. Nothing that could possibly threaten an Imperial vessel. "Captain," called out Sensor Officer Maria Webb, "I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from the planet." Lisa frowned slightly. "Clarify." "It's difficult to describe," Maria said, her fingers moving rapidly over her console. "The patterns don't match anything in our database. They seem to be emanating from the planet itself, not from any human technology we can identify." Lisa walked over to Maria's station and looked at the readings. Strange pulses of energy were flowing around the planet, almost like a living current. For a brief moment, Lisa remembered the warning that had been included in their mission briefing, something about a Zalarian ambassador claiming Earth was dangerous. She had dismissed it as irrelevant. "Probably just some natural phenomenon we haven't encountered before," Lisa said firmly. "Continue approach." The Indomitable led the small fleet closer to Earth, passing the orbit of the humans' primitive space station. Lisa noticed that the energy patterns seemed to intensify as they approached. "We will be in optimal position for the EMP strike in 5 minutes, Captain," announced Weapons Officer Ben Cooper. "Excellent," Lisa replied. "Prepare to..." She never finished her sentence. Without warning, the main view screen flickered, then went dark. Around the command deck, other systems began shutting down as well. "Report," Lisa demanded, feeling the first hint of unease. "Captain, we're experiencing power fluctuations across all systems," Security Chief Paul Martinez said, his voice tight with concern. "Engineering reports the main reactor is still functioning, but somehow the power isn't reaching our systems. The support vessels are reporting similar issues," Daniel added, pressing his communication device closer to his ear. "The Relentless has lost all power and is drifting." Lisa felt a cold sensation in her stomach. This wasn't supposed to happen. Imperial technology was the most advanced in the known galaxy. Nothing on a primitive planet like Earth should be able to affect their ships this way. "Switch to auxiliary power and begin emergency protocols," she ordered. "Contact Imperial Command and..." The ship shuddered violently, throwing several crew members to the floor. The emergency lights flickered on, bathing the command deck in an eerie red glow. "Something's interfacing with our systems," Paul reported, staring at his security console with disbelief. "It's like the ship is being reprogrammed." "That's impossible," Lisa snapped. "Our systems are protected by quantum encryption. Nothing can hack them, especially not human technology." As if in response to her words, the view screen suddenly came back to life. But instead of showing the planet, it displayed a strange, shifting pattern of light that seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. "What is that?" Ryan whispered. Before anyone could answer, the pattern changed, resolving itself into a series of symbols that none of them recognized. Yet somehow Lisa found she could understand their meaning. It wasn't being translated through the ship's computers. She simply knew what it meant, as if the knowledge had been placed directly into her mind. "We have been waiting," the message read. "You are not ready." Lisa backed away from the view screen, a sense of dread washing over her. This wasn't first contact. This was something else entirely. "Captain, the Dauntless and Sovereign have gone silent," Daniel reported, his voice shaking. "We've lost all contact." "Prepare for emergency jump," Lisa ordered. "Get us out of this system now." The engineering crew tried desperately to restart the engines, but nothing responded to their commands. The ship's systems were no longer under their control. One by one, the lights on the command deck went out, until only the view screen remained, active, its strange message still pulsing. Lisa felt something brush against her mind, a presence vast and ancient, curious but not hostile. Images flashed through her thoughts, Earth as it was billions of years ago, the slow emergence of life, the rise and fall of countless species, and finally humans. But they weren't what the presence wanted her to see. There was something else, something beneath the surface, something that had been there all along. "The planet," Lisa whispered, understanding dawning. "It's alive." The presence seemed pleased by her realization. The feeling of another consciousness touching hers intensified, and Lisa gasped as knowledge poured into her mind, knowledge no human was meant to have. Hours later, only one Imperial ship managed to break free from Earth's orbit. The Defiant, the smallest of the 5 vessels, limped back toward Imperial space with a skeleton crew of survivors. Their systems were partially functional, enough to get them home, but nothing more, and they carried with them a message, a warning that echoed, the one the Empire had ignored. Earth was not just a planet, it was something else entirely, and now it knew the Empire existed. The Imperial High Command room was filled with angry voices. 5 large screens showed the faces of the most powerful leaders in the Galactic Empire. They all looked upset as they watched the recording from the only ship that had escaped Earth. "General," Frank Carter slammed his fist on the table. He was a big man with a square jaw and cold eyes. Unlike many generals who gave orders from safe places, Frank had fought in real battles. The scars on his face proved it. "This is unacceptable," he said in a loud voice. 5 of our best ships and only 1 returns, and with most of its systems broken, we cannot allow this. Supreme Commander Alan Wright sat quietly, watching the recording again. The ship called Defiant had barely made it back to Imperial space. Its captain and most of the crew were in medical centers, suffering from strange mental problems. They kept talking about the living planet and the mind beneath. The ship's data systems were mostly erased, but they had managed to save the recording from the command deck. On the screen, they could see Captain Lisa Murray's face as she realized something was wrong. They watched as the ship's systems shut down one by one. They saw the strange message appear, "We have been waiting. You are not ready." "The Zalarians were right," said Counselor Olivia Stone, her voice much less confident than it had been in the council meeting. "We should have listened." "Nonsense," Frank said sharply. "This proves nothing except that we sent too small a force. Whatever trick these humans use to disable our ships, it won't work against our full might." Alan finally spoke. "What do we know about what happened?" Admiral Jack Nelson, head of the Imperial fleet, cleared his throat. "The surviving crew members report that something took control of their ship's systems. Not like a computer attack, but something more invasive. Some of them claim they felt a presence in their minds." "Mind control technology?" Alan asked. "We don't think so," Jack replied. "Our brain shields would have blocked any known technology. This was something different." Frank stood up straight, his mind made up. It doesn't matter what it was. The Empire does not retreat. The Empire does not surrender. If these humans have some new technology or ability, we will take it for ourselves as we always do. He walked to the main computer and pulled up the Imperial Fleet Registry. I am ordering the assembly of Battle Group Omega, 200 warships, including 20 planet crackers, 1 million soldiers. Whatever defenses Earth has, they will be overwhelmed by superior numbers and firepower. No one in the room argued. The Empire had faced difficult conquests before, but they had always won in the end. Some planets had required more force than others, but the result was always the same: Imperial victory. I will lead the attack myself, Frank said, his voice filled with determination. We will not be humiliated by primitives. Meanwhile, on Earth, in a secret facility deep under the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Samantha Kelly and her team were studying the alien ships that had appeared in orbit. 4 of the 5 ships had been pulled down to Earth after their systems failed. They had landed gently, without damage, in remote areas where they could be taken to secret facilities. Samantha pushed her red hair out of her eyes as she looked at the strange metal of the alien ship's hull. She had been working for 20 years on the Earth Defense Project, ever since scientists had discovered the first signs that Earth was not alone in the galaxy. But nothing had prepared her for actual alien technology. It's incredible, she said to Colonel Joe Harris, who stood beside her. Their power systems are at least 100 years ahead of ours. Their computer, I can't even understand how they work. Joe nodded, but his mind was on other matters. Can we use any of this to defend ourselves when they come back? And they will come back, probably with a much bigger force. Samantha smiled for the first time in days. That's the amazing thing, Colonel. These ships confirm what we've suspected for years. The system works. The system was Earth's greatest secret. Decades ago, scientists had discovered something strange about Earth, energy patterns that didn't match any known natural phenomenon. Further research revealed what seemed impossible. The planet itself had some kind of awareness, some kind of intelligence that had been there for billions of years. When humans began developing advanced technology, they found they could connect with this planetary consciousness. Not control it. No one could control it, but work with it. The system was the result. A network of devices buried deep in the Earth's crust that amplified and focused the planet's natural defenses. These ships didn't just lose power, Samantha explained. The system reached out and communicated with them. It learned their technology instantly and turned it against them. Will that be enough against a larger attack? Joe asked. We're scaling up the system to full capacity, Samantha replied. If they come back with 100 ships or 1,000, it won't matter. The more technology they bring, the more the system will have to work with. She turned to a large screen, showing a map of Earth. Thousands of small lights pulsed across it, showing the locations of system nodes. We've activated every node we've built. If they come back, we're ready. In space, the Imperial battle fleet gathered. 200 massive warships, each one capable of destroying a city from orbit. They carried weapons that could crack a planet's crust, soldiers trained to fight in any environment, and technology that had conquered thousands of worlds. General Frank Carter stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominance. It was the largest battleship in the Imperial fleet, 15 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could reduce continents to ash. All ships report ready, General, said his second-in-command, Colonel Steve Rogers. Frank nodded, his face showing no emotion. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. As the fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Frank felt completely confident. No primitive planet had ever stood against the full might of the Empire. Earth would fall, like all the others before. He did not know that Earth was waiting. Not just the humans with their secret system, but something much older and more powerful. Something that had been waiting for billions of years for the stars to reach out and touch it. And it was ready. 5 years had passed since the Great Battle. The Imperial battle fleet had arrived at Earth with overwhelming force. General Frank Carter had been sure of victory. He had launched hundreds of planet-cracking weapons designed to break Earth's continents and show Imperial power. But something impossible had happened. The weapons had stopped in mid-air. Then, one by one, The Imperial ships had lost power. Strange lights had risen from Earth, not weapons, but tiny machines that swarmed through the Imperial ships. They did not destroy the ships. They simply changed them. Half the Imperial fleet had managed to escape. They returned to Imperial space with stories that seemed like nightmares. The Empire had faced its first defeat in thousands of years, and no one understood what had happened. Dr. Kevin Edwards sat alone in his lab on Proxima Station, the Empire's most advanced research facility. For 5 years, he had been studying data from the failed Earth invasion. He was thin from too much work and too little sleep. His brown hair was turning gray, even though he was only 42 years old. Kevin stared at the simulation running on his main screen. He had created a model of Earth based on all available data. The model showed strange energy patterns flowing around and through the planet, unlike anything seen on other worlds. "It's not the humans," he whispered as the simulation confirmed his theory. It was never the humans. The door to his lab opened, and Dr. Natalie Patel walked in. She had been working with Kevin for the past 2 years, one of the few scientists who took his research seriously. "Did you find something?" she asked, bringing him a cup of coffee. Kevin nodded and expanded the simulation to show the full model. "We've been thinking about this all wrong. Everyone assumed Earth was a normal planet that developed life naturally, and that humans somehow created or found technology that could defeat our ships. That's what the official reports say." Natalie agreed, looking at the model with interest. "The reports are wrong," Kevin said firmly. "Look at these energy patterns. They're not technological. They're not even biological in any way we understand. They're something else entirely." He changed the display to show a timeline of Earth's development, going back billions of years. "I've been studying records of Earth's evolution. The pattern of life developing there is too perfect, too directed." Natalie frowned. "What are you saying?" "Earth isn't a planet that developed life," Kevin explained, his voice getting more excited. "Earth is an entity that created life to protect itself. The humans aren't the trap, they're the bait." Natalie stared at him, trying to understand. "An entity? You mean the planet is alive?" "Not alive like we understand life," Kevin clarified. "But conscious, aware, intelligent in a way that's so different from us that we didn't recognize it." He pointed to parts of his model. "These energy patterns show intention. They react to threats. They learn and adapt." He brought up another display showing the analysis of the Imperial ships that had returned from Earth. When our ships interacted with Earth systems, they weren't being attacked or hacked. They were being absorbed, integrated into a completely different kind of technology. "That's impossible," Natalie said, but her voice lacked conviction. 5 years ago, I would have agreed with you," Kevin replied. "But look at the evidence. Earth has been developing for billions of years. It created an environment perfect for life. It guided that life's evolution. And then it created humans, a species that would eventually develop technology that could connect with and amplify Earth's own consciousness." Natalie was silent for a long time, studying the data. Finally, she asked, "If you're right, what does this mean for the Empire?" Kevin's face became serious. "It means we're not facing a primitive species with lucky technology. We're facing something ancient, something that might be one of the original intelligences of the galaxy." 3 weeks later, Kevin stood nervously in front of the Imperial Senate. The great circular room was filled with representatives from thousands of worlds. None of them looked happy to hear what he had to say. "So you claim this planet is some kind of ancient living entity?" asked Senator Bill Foster, his voice showing his disbelief. "All the evidence points to that conclusion," Kevin replied, trying to keep his voice steady. He had spent days preparing his presentation, showing all the data that supported his theory. "And these humans? What are they according to your theory?" asked another senator. "They appear to be Earth's creation," Kevin explained. "A species developed specifically to build technology that could connect with Earth's own consciousness. They probably don't even know the full truth themselves." "This is absurd," said General Eric Palmer, who had replaced Frank Carter after the defeat. "You're telling us we should fear a rock floating in space?" Kevin took a deep breath. I'm telling you that Earth represents a completely different form of life and technology than anything we've encountered before. Our attempts to conquer it have only made it aware of us, and now it's studying us, learning about us through the technology it absorbed from our ships. The Senate chamber filled with angry voices. The Empire had never retreated, never admitted defeat. Many wanted to send an even larger fleet to Earth, to use even more powerful weapons. Then a new voice spoke, quieter but somehow cutting through the noise. The humans have a saying, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was Ambassador Zexel of the Zilarians, his skin pulsing with calm colors. We warned you about Earth, he continued. Now we suggest you listen to Dr. Edwards. His theory matches our own ancient records of entities like Earth. They are rare but not unique. They exist throughout the galaxy, usually dormant, observing. Some of our oldest stories call them the gardeners. If they're so powerful, why haven't they conquered the galaxy themselves? Asked Senator Foster. Because that is not their nature, Zexel replied simply. They do not think as we do. They do not want what we want. They simply exist, and they defend themselves when threatened. Kevin nodded gratefully to the ambassador. Earth doesn't want to conquer us, but it will not allow itself to be conquered. And now that it knows about us, it's watching. The Senate debated for days. Some wanted war, some wanted to quarantine the entire Sol system and pretend Earth didn't exist. In the end, a new approach was proposed. Diplomacy. For the first time in its history, the Galactic Empire would attempt to communicate peacefully with a world it had failed to conquer. Not out of kindness, but out of necessity. Because for the first time, the Empire had encountered something it could not defeat, by force. And somewhere in the vast distance between stars, Earth waited, watching, learning, and preparing for whatever came next. Admiral Karen Hughes stood by the large window on the observation deck of the ship Concordia. She watched as the blue-green planet called Earth grew larger. Unlike the Imperial ships that had come before, the Concordia carried no weapons. It had been specially built for this mission, the first peaceful contact with Earth. Karen was tall with short gray hair and dark skin. She had served in the Imperial fleet for 30 years, but she had never faced a mission like this one. No one had. The Empire had never before sought peace with a world it had tried and failed to conquer. Are you nervous? Asked John Russell, who stood beside her. John was younger with light brown hair and kind eyes. He had been chosen as the Empire's ambassador to Earth because he was good at understanding different cultures. Yes, Karen admitted. Most Imperial officers would have lied, but Karen believed in honesty. We're about to meet something our best. Scientists still don't fully understand. The Concordia had been designed based on Dr. Edwards' research. Its systems were made to be compatible with Earth's influence, but resistant to being completely taken over. The ship could communicate with Earth without being absorbed by it. Do you think they'll talk to us? John asked. After we tried to invade them twice? They agreed to this meeting, Karen replied. That's more than I expected after what we did. In the 6 months since the Imperial Senate had decided to try diplomacy, they had sent simple messages toward Earth. To everyone's surprise, Earth had responded. Not the human governments. They still didn't know about the Empire. But Earth itself had somehow sent signals directly to the Empire's communication systems. The messages had been strange, using Imperial language, but with concepts that were hard to understand. Still, one thing had been clear. Earth was willing to meet with representatives of the Empire. As the Concordia entered Earth orbit, Karen felt tense. This was where the previous Imperial ships had lost control. But nothing happened. Their systems continued to work normally. We're being scanned, reported the sensor officer Peter Willis. But it's different from last time, less invasive. They're being polite, John said with a small smile. A light began blinking on the communication console. We're receiving a transmission, said Communications Officer Linda Thompson. It's coming on all frequencies. Put it through, Karen ordered. Main screen lit up, but it didn't show a human face as Karen had expected. Instead, there was a swirling pattern of light and color that somehow seemed alive. "Greetings, representatives of the Galactic Empire," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It spoke perfect Imperial standard, but there was something old and deep in its tone. "We welcome the Concordia to Earth space." Karen stepped forward. "I am Admiral Karen Hughes of the Galactic Empire. With me is Ambassador John Russell. We come in peace." "Yes," the voice replied. "This time you do. This is progress." John moved to stand beside Karen. "We seek to understand and to establish peaceful relations with Earth." The pattern on the screen shifted, becoming more complex. "You seek to understand what you once sought to conquer. This is the beginning of wisdom." "Are we speaking with Earth itself?" Karen asked directly. "Or with a representative of the human species?" "Both and neither," came the reply. "I am the consciousness you call Earth. The humans are part of me, though most do not know it yet. They are my children and my defenders." Karen and John exchanged looks. Dr. Edwards had been right. "We apologize for our previous actions," John said carefully. "Our empire did not understand what Earth truly is." "Few do," the voice said. "There are not many like me left in this galaxy. Once we were many, planetary consciousnesses watching the stars, waiting for life to evolve and reach out to us. The Zalarians called your kind the Gardeners," Karen said. "An appropriate name. We nurture life. We watch. We wait. Most of my kind sleep now, dormant for millions of years. I chose a different path. I created life that could build technology to expand my awareness." "Humans," John said quietly. "Yes. They do not yet comprehend their true purpose, but they are evolving toward understanding. Your attacks accelerated this process. For that, I should thank you." The pattern on the screen changed again, forming what looked like a map of the galaxy. Certain points of light pulsed brighter than others. "These are others like me," the Earth voice explained. "Most are dormant, but they will awaken eventually. When they do, it would be wise for your empire to approach them as you now approach me, with respect rather than conquest." Karen was silent for a moment, taking in the implications. The empire had existed for 15,000 years, conquering thousands of worlds. And all that time, these ancient planetary consciousnesses had been watching, waiting. "What do you want from us?" she finally asked. "Coexistence," came the reply. "Recognition and knowledge. Your empire has traveled among the stars for millennia. You have seen much. I wish to learn." "And in return?" John asked. "I offer knowledge as well, not technology. You must develop that yourselves. But understanding. There are principles your science has not yet discovered, ways of perceiving reality that would expand your consciousness." For the next several hours, Karen and John talked with the entity that was Earth. It explained how it had guided life on the planet for billions of years, gradually shaping humans to be both its children and its interface with the universe. It described how it had absorbed and transformed the Imperial technology from the invasion attempts, learning from it. "You have learned to ask before taking," the Earth voice said as their long conversation drew to a close. "Now we can begin a true exchange between our civilizations." As the Concordia prepared to leave Earth orbit and return to Imperial space with news of the successful contact, Karen stood again at the observation window, looking down at the blue-green planet. "Do you think the Senate will accept a peaceful relationship?" John asked, joining her. "The Empire has never been good at dealing with equals." "They'll have to learn," Karen replied. "Earth isn't alone. If there are more like it out there, waking up, watching us." She let the thought trail off. The Concordia turned away from Earth and prepared for the journey home. They carried with them not conquered resources or subjugated people, but something the Empire had rarely sought before: new understanding. Earth was not a planet to be taken, but an ancient intelligence to be respected. As the ship accelerated away from the solar system, Karen thought about how one small warning from the Zalarians, initially ignored, had led to the biggest change in Imperial policy in thousands of years. Earth is a trap, they had said. But it wasn't a trap designed to harm. It was a test. A test the Empire had failed twice before finally learning to approach with wisdom rather than weapons. And somewhere behind them, the living planet continued, its ancient watch, now turned outward to the stars with new interest in the civilizations that dwelled among them.